The lunch tray nearly slipped from Emma Chen's hands as someone deliberately bumped into her shoulder. At 16, she'd mastered the art of becoming invisible in new schools, and Jefferson High was her fourth attempt in 5 years. Her mother's job as a traveling nurse meant constant relocations, each one requiring Emma to rebuild from scratch. Standing at barely 5 feet 3 inches with an unremarkable build, Emma had learned to dress in muted colors that helped her fade into the background. Her straight black hair fell like a curtain around her face, and wire-rimmed glasses sat perched on her nose, giving her the appearance of just another bookish student lost in Jefferson's sea of 2,000 teenagers. What nobody at Jefferson knew, what Emma made certain to keep hidden, was that beneath her oversized hoodies lay the physique of someone who'd been training in combat sports since age 6. Her mother, a former military medic, had enrolled her in martial arts after witnessing too many victims of violence in emergency rooms. A decade of dedication had earned Emma black belts in both taekwondo and judo, along with extensive training in Krav Maga. She could dismantle opponents twice her weight without breaking a sweat, but her instructors had drilled one principle into her mind: true warriors never seek conflict. Jefferson High sprawled across several acres on the edge of town, its hallways forming a maze where social hierarchies ruled with iron fists. Emma had been there 3 weeks, long enough to identify the danger zones: the alcove behind the science building, the dead-end corridor near the old gymnasium, and most notably, the abandoned music room on the 3rd floor where the school's self-appointed royalty conducted their reign of terror. The undisputed leader was Marcus Reeves, a senior whose designer clothes and perfectly styled blonde hair masked a cruel streak that manifested in calculated psychological warfare. His primary accomplices were Jake Morrison, a wrestling team captain whose bulk served as Marcus's enforcer, and Connor Liu, a wiry boy with sharp features who possessed an unsettling talent for finding people's weaknesses. Emma had first caught their attention purely by accident. She'd been eating lunch alone in the courtyard when Marcus's girlfriend had tripped, spilling her drink. Emma had instinctively offered her napkins to help clean up, a simple act of kindness that Marcus interpreted as an attempt to embarrass them. "Who asked for your help?" he'd snapped, his green eyes narrowing as he evaluated this unfamiliar face. "Nobody," Emma had replied quietly, already backing away. "Just trying to help." "Well, don't," Connor had added, circling her like a predator. "We don't need charity from nobodies." From that moment, Emma became their latest project. It started subtly: mysterious spills near her locker, homework that mysteriously disappeared from her desk, whispered comments that followed her through hallways. She'd weathered similar storms before, always choosing endurance over confrontation. Her mother had promised this would be their last move until graduation, but Emma knew better than to believe in permanence. The harassment escalated gradually, like water slowly coming to a boil. Jake would shoulder-check her in hallways, sending her books flying. Connor spread rumors about why she'd transferred, each version more creative and damaging than the last. Marcus orchestrated it all with the detached amusement of someone conducting a social experiment. "Hey, ghost girl," Marcus called out one morning as Emma tried to slip past their group near the lockers. "Still pretending you belong here?" Emma kept walking, but Jake stepped into her path. "Marcus is talking to you. It's rude to ignore people." "I need to get to class," Emma said evenly, trying to sidestep him. "Class can wait," Connor chimed in, boxing her in from the other side. "We're trying to figure out what your deal is. Are you mute, antisocial, or just too good for everyone?" Emma felt her muscles coiling, her body automatically shifting into a defensive stance before she forced herself to relax. Years of training made these reactions involuntary, but she'd learned to mask them. These boys had no idea they were surrounding someone who could leave them unconscious in seconds. "I just want to be left alone," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. That's the problem, ghost girl. You don't get to decide that. We decide who gets left alone at Jefferson. The bell rang, providing Emma an escape route as other students flooded the hallway. She slipped away in the crowd, but she could feel their eyes tracking her movement, already planning their next move. At home, Emma worked through her frustrations on the heavy bag her mother had installed in their garage. Each punch was precise, controlled, channeling weeks of suppressed anger into productive training. Her mother, Sarah, watched from the doorway with concern etched across her face. "Rough day at school?" Sarah asked, though the answer was obvious. Emma paused, wiping sweat from her forehead. Same as usual. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right? Or we could speak to the administration." "It won't help," Emma interrupted. "It never does. They'll deny everything and it'll just make things worse," Sarah sighed, recognizing the truth in her daughter's words. "Just remember what Master Kim always says. Violence is the last resort of the incompetent," Emma finished. "I know, Mom. I'm handling it. But as the weeks passed, handling it became increasingly difficult." The trio seemed to sense that Emma's lack of response wasn't weakness, but restraint, and they pushed harder, searching for her breaking point. They vandalized her locker, destroyed her art project, and even followed her partway home one afternoon, shouting insults until she ducked into a store to lose them. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon in early November. Emma had stayed after school to work in the computer lab, losing track of time until the building was nearly empty. She was heading toward the exit when she heard footsteps echoing behind her. Her stomach dropped as she recognized the voices. Marcus, Jake, and Connor had been waiting. They cornered her near the abandoned music room, its doorway offering no escape route. Marcus stood in the center, his usual smirk replaced with something darker. "4 weeks, he said conversationally. "That's how long you've been ignoring us. Do you have any idea how disrespectful that is?" Emma's hand tightened on her backpack strap. "Please, just let me go home." "Home?" Connor laughed. "Which home? The one you're in now, or the next one you'll run to when things get hard?" "We know all about you," Jake added, cracking his knuckles. Connor did some digging. 4 schools in 5 years. That's not normal. What are you running from?" "Nothing," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. "My mom's job requires us to move." "Or maybe," Marcus stepped closer, "you're the problem. Maybe every school gets sick of you and forces you out." Emma backed up until she hit the wall. "That's not true." "Prove it," Marcus challenged. "Show us you're not just some pathetic loser who can't even defend herself." Jake moved closer, and Emma could smell the protein shake on his breath. "Maybe she needs motivation," he suggested, his hand reaching out toward her face. "A little slap might wake her up." Time slowed as Jake's palm moved toward her cheek. Emma's mind processed multiple options in milliseconds. Block, dodge, counter. Her training screamed at her to respond, every fiber of her being ready to unleash years of preparation. His hand was inches from her face when Connor suddenly grabbed her backpack, yanking it off her shoulder. The sudden movement triggered something primal in Emma, a switch flipping from restraint to action. As Jake's hand continued toward her face and Connor rifled through her belongings, she moved. Her hand shot up, catching Jake's wrist and redirecting his momentum. Using a classic judo technique, she pivoted, sending him flying over her hip. He crashed into the lockers with a metallic clang that echoed through the empty hallway. Before Marcus could process what had happened, Emma's leg swept out, catching him behind the knees. He toppled backward, his head bouncing off the linoleum floor. Connor dropped the backpack, raising his fists in a boxing stance he'd probably learned from YouTube videos. Emma almost felt sorry for him. She ducked his wild swing, stepped inside his guard, and delivered a precise strike to his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping, and she helped him to the floor with a controlled takedown that left him groaning but uninjured. The entire encounter had lasted less than 15 seconds. Emma stood in the center of the fallen bullies, her breathing controlled, her stance still ready for any continuation of the threat. Jake was slumped against the lockers, holding his shoulder. Marcus lay on his back, blinking in shock. Connor was curled in a fetal position, trying to catch his breath. "I asked you to leave me alone," Emma said, her voice carrying an authority none of them had heard before. "I tried to avoid this. But if you ever touch me again, if you ever corner me again, if you even look at me wrong again, I won't hold back next time." She picked up her backpack, checking that nothing was damaged, then stepped over Marcus's prone form. "Oh, and Connor. My family moves because my mom saves lives at understaffed hospitals. We go where we're needed most. What does your family do?" She didn't wait for an answer. The next morning, Emma expected to be called to the principal's office. She expected suspension, expulsion, or at minimum, a serious conversation about violence on school property. What she didn't expect was the sea of faces that turned toward her when she entered the building. "Is it true?" A freshman girl approached her with wide eyes. "Did you really take down Marcus and his whole crew?" Emma's stomach sank. "Who told you that?" "Everyone's talking about it," the girl said excitedly. "Jamie saw the whole thing from around the corner. She said you moved like something out of an action movie." By second period, Emma had heard 6 different versions of the story, each more embellished than the last. In one version, she had apparently done backflips. In another, she'd pulled out nunchucks. The most creative tale claimed she was secretly in witness protection and had been trained by the CIA. During lunch, she sat alone as usual, but the empty space around her felt different. Before, it had been the isolation of an outsider. Now, it was the buffer zone people create around something they don't quite understand. Her solitude was interrupted when someone slid into the seat across from her. Emma looked up to find Marcus sitting there, a purple bruise visible on his jaw. Instead of his usual arrogant posture, his shoulders were hunched, making him look younger than his 18 years. "What do you want?" Emma asked, immediately on guard. Marcus glanced around nervously. The cafeteria had gone quiet, everyone watching their interaction. "I wanted to apologize," he said, the words seeming to physically pain him. Emma studied his face, searching for deception. "Why?" "Because what we did was wrong," he admitted, "and because my parents saw the security footage." Emma's eyes widened. "There are cameras in that hallway." Marcus nodded. "Principal Thompson showed it to them this morning. You're not in trouble," he added quickly. "The video clearly shows Jake trying to hit you first. We're the ones facing suspension." "Good," Emma said simply. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Can I ask you something? Where did you learn to fight like that?" Despite everything, Emma found herself answering honestly. "My mom started teaching me when I was 6. She'd seen too many victims to let me go through life defenseless." "That's actually really cool," Marcus said, seeming genuine for the first time since she'd met him. "Look, I know you probably hate us, and you have every right to, but would you consider teaching other students? Principal Thompson mentioned starting a self-defense program and—" "Let me guess," Emma interrupted. "This is part of your punishment? Helping organize it?" Marcus's face reddened. "Yeah, but also, my younger sister goes here. She's a sophomore. After seeing that video, realizing how easily someone could hurt her the way we tried to hurt you, I want her to be able to protect herself." Emma considered him for a long moment. "I'll think about it." Over the following week, the atmosphere at Jefferson High shifted dramatically. Jake, Marcus, and Connor served their suspensions separately, returning subdued and avoiding Emma completely. Jake, surprisingly, sought her out to offer a genuine apology, explaining that his father had made him volunteer at a women's shelter as part of his punishment. "I had to listen to their stories," he told her, his voice thick with emotion. What they went through, what people did to them. I never really thought about it from that perspective before. Connor's apology came in the form of a detailed letter, 3 pages of reflection about toxic masculinity and peer pressure that his therapist had apparently helped him write. It was awkward and overly formal, but Emma appreciated the effort. The self-defense program launched 2 weeks later, with Emma as the lead instructor and, surprisingly, Marcus as her assistant. Their first session drew over 40 students, mostly girls, but a handful of boys as well. Emma started with basic awareness and de-escalation techniques, emphasizing that physical confrontation should always be the last resort. "The best fight," she told them, echoing her master's words, "is the one that never happens." She demonstrated holds and escapes, using Marcus as her practice dummy. He took his falls without complaint, even when she could tell his pride was bruising along with his body. During a water break, she overheard him talking to his sister, Rebecca. "I'm proud of you for doing this," Rebecca was saying. "Yeah, well," Marcus rubbed his neck sheepishly. "Someone recently taught me that real strength isn't about intimidating others, it's about protecting them." As the semester progressed, Emma found herself at the center of a social circle she'd never sought, but couldn't help appreciating. Students who'd been victims of bullying approached her for advice. Teachers nodded at her with newfound respect. Even the wrestling coach tried to recruit her, though she politely declined. One afternoon, while demonstrating a defensive technique, Emma noticed Jake in the back of the room, carefully taking notes. After class, he approached her. "My little brother just started middle school," he explained. "Kids are already picking on him because he's small. I want to teach him what you're teaching us, but I want to make sure I get it right." Emma spent an extra hour working with Jake, correcting his form and teaching him how to scale the techniques for a smaller person. It was surreal, training someone who had tried to hurt her just weeks earlier, but she could see genuine change in his demeanor. Connor's transformation was perhaps the most dramatic. He channeled his analytical mind into researching bullying prevention programs, presenting his findings to the school board with a passion that surprised everyone who knew him. He started a peer counseling program, using his former talent for finding weaknesses to help students identify and address their insecurities constructively. The day before winter break, Emma found herself standing in the same hallway where everything had changed. The abandoned music room had been converted into a meditation and conflict resolution space, a project spearheaded by the unlikely alliance of former bullies and their victims. Marcus appeared beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "Weird how things change, isn't it?" "Change only happens when people choose it," Emma replied. "Is that another martial arts wisdom thing?" "No," Emma smiled slightly. "That's just common sense." Marcus laughed, a genuine sound so different from his earlier cruel chuckles. "You know, I spent so much time trying to make others feel small because I felt small. My dad always said showing weakness was the worst thing a man could do." "Admitting you're wrong takes more strength than never making mistakes," Emma offered. "Where do you get all these sayings?" 10 years of training doesn't just build muscle," Emma tapped her temple. "It builds perspective." As they stood there, Rebecca Reeves approached with a group of friends, all wearing the Self-Defense Club t-shirts Emma had designed. "Em, we were wondering if you could show us that wrist escape again before break." Emma nodded, following the girls toward the gym. As she walked away, she heard Marcus call out, "Hey, Emma!" She turned back. "Thanks," he said simply. "For everything, for not giving up on us, even when we gave you every reason to." Emma considered his words. Everyone deserves a chance to be better than they were yesterday. The last day of the semester brought an unexpected announcement. Principal Thompson called Emma to her office, where she found her mother waiting with a concerned expression. "Am I in trouble?" Emma asked automatically. Quite the opposite, Principal Thompson smiled. The school board has approved funding for a full self-defense curriculum, and we'd like to offer you a position as a paid student instructor. Emma's mouth fell open. But I'm just a student who has transformed our school culture in a matter of weeks, the principal interrupted. Bullying incidents are down 60%. 3 other schools in the district want to implement your program. Sarah Chen squeezed her daughter's hand. I'm proud of you, Em. You found a way to use your strength to lift others up. As they left the office, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She'd arrived at Jefferson High, hoping to remain invisible, to survive another temporary stop in her nomadic life. Instead, she'd found a purpose she hadn't expected and a community she'd never thought possible. Walking through the hallways, she noticed the changes everywhere. Students who once hunched their shoulders now walked with confidence. Former bullies served as hall monitors, using their influence to protect rather than terrorize. The culture of fear had been replaced with one of mutual respect and empowerment. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, first session after break, teaching de-escalation to the football team. Coach says it's mandatory after last week's fight. You in? She typed back, only if Jake demonstrates the falls. Deal. He says his shoulder finally stopped hurting from last time. Emma smiled, pocketing her phone. She'd spent so many years hiding her strength, afraid it would make her a target or an outcast. But sometimes, she realized, the greatest strength wasn't in fighting or even in defending yourself. It was in showing others that they had power too, that they could choose to be protectors instead of predators. As she headed home, Emma passed the trophy case where photos of the Self-Defense Club now held a prominent position. In the center was a picture from their first session, her demonstrating a technique with Marcus as her partner, both of them focused and serious. Someone had added a caption, "Strength through respect, power through discipline." Her mother was waiting in the car, ready to drive her to her evening training session. Master Kim had heard about the program and wanted Emma to teach a seminar for adult students who worked in schools. "Ready?" Sarah asked as Emma climbed in. "Yeah," Emma replied, thinking about all the students who would return after break, eager to learn, to grow, to become stronger versions of themselves. "I'm ready." As they drove away from Jefferson High, Emma saw Jake jogging past, wearing one of the Self-Defense Club shirts. He waved and she waved back, still amazed at how dramatically things had shifted. The boy who had once tried to slap her now spent his free time teaching his brother to stand tall without standing on others. Her phone buzzed again. Rebecca Reeves had sent a photo from the mall where she and her friends were shopping. They'd run into some aggressive guys who wouldn't take no for an answer, but Rebecca had used the verbal de-escalation techniques Emma had taught them. "Worked perfectly," the message read. "They backed off without us having to get physical. You gave us our power back." Emma smiled, leaning back in her seat. She thought about her younger self, the 6-year-old girl whose mother had enrolled her in martial arts after witnessing one too many broken people in the emergency room. That little girl had trained to never be a victim. She'd learned to fight so she wouldn't have to be afraid, but somewhere along the way, Emma had discovered something more important. True strength wasn't just about protecting yourself. It was about empowering others to stand tall. It was about transforming bullies into allies, victims into warriors, and fear into respect. Her mother glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Proud of you, kiddo. You handled everything perfectly." "Not perfectly," Emma admitted, thinking of those weeks she'd endured the harassment in silence. "But I learned from it." "That's all anyone can do," Sarah replied. "Learn and grow." As they pulled into Master Kim's dojo, Emma saw several cars already in the parking lot. Through the windows, she could see adult students warming up. eager to learn from a teenager who had managed to transform an entire school's culture with wisdom beyond her years. Emma grabbed her gear bag and headed inside, ready to share what she'd learned. Not just the techniques and moves, but the deeper lessons, that everyone had the capacity for both cruelty and kindness, that strength without compassion was just another form of weakness, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was give others the tools to find their own power. The dojo door chimed as she entered, and Master Kim greeted her with a deep bow. "I heard you've been putting our teachings to good use." "I tried to honor them, Master," Emma replied, returning the bow. "From what I understand, you did more than that. You transformed them into something greater. You ready to teach?" Emma looked at the assembled students, teachers, counselors, administrators, all wanting to learn how to better protect and empower their students. She thought about Marcus, Jake, and Connor, who would return after break as changed people. She thought about Rebecca and the dozens of other students who now walked with confidence instead of fear. "Yes," Emma said, stepping onto the mat. "I'm ready." As she began the session, demonstrating the same principles she taught at Jefferson High, Emma realized that this was her true calling, not just to be strong, but to help others discover their own strength, not just to defend herself, but to create a world where fewer people needed defending. The shy new girl who had walked into Jefferson High just months ago was gone, replaced by a young woman who understood that real power came not from domination, but from lifting others up. And as she watched the adults practice the techniques she demonstrated, she knew that the ripples of change would spread far beyond Jefferson High. Every person in that dojo would go back to their schools with new tools, new perspectives, and new ways to empower their students. The cycle of bullying and fear that plagued so many schools could be broken, one transformed person at a time. As the session ended and the students thanked her, Emma felt a sense of purpose she'd never experienced before. She'd spent years training for a fight she hoped would never come. Now she realized she'd been training for something much more important, the chance to change lives, to transform communities, and to prove that strength and kindness were not opposites, but partners in creating a better world. Walking back to the car with her mother, Emma's phone lit up with messages from the Jefferson High Self-Defense Club group chat. Plans for the next semester were already forming. Guest speakers, community outreach, partnerships with other schools. The movement she'd inadvertently started had taken on a life of its own. "Looks like you're going to be busy," Sarah commented, seeing the constant notifications. "Good busy," Emma replied, thinking of all the students who would never have to endure what she had endured, all the potential bullies who would choose a different path, all the hidden strength waiting to be awakened in people who just needed someone to show them the way. As they drove home through the winter evening, Emma allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She'd turned the worst experience of her high school years into something transformative, not just for herself, but for an entire community. The girl who had wanted nothing more than to be invisible had become a beacon for others, seeking their own light. And this, she knew, was just the beginning. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.